Color is one of the most important things that you should learn if you want to improve your art. Learning color theory can make your art go from something like this to something that can look like this in just a couple of adjustments. In this video, I'll go over the basics and cover what colors can make an illustration look more interesting, as well as other things that pro artists use such as tone curve, color balance, and even gradient maps to make their art stand out. I think that the most important thing that you have to understand about color is that color is relative. Take for example something as simple as these gray squares in this gradient. Although they are the exact same color, the one on the left side will look brighter in comparison to the one on the right side. Although the values look different, they are actually the exact same. This isn't something that just applies to gray as well. It applies to every single color that you pick, and is the main reason why optical illusions such as this, or even something as crazy as this, work to trick our eyes. Value is not the only thing that changes depending on the surrounding colors. In the right conditions, the color's temperatures will also slightly shift as well. In this example, the gray in the middle will look slightly more warm, while if we change the surrounding colors to red, it will do the opposite, making the square in the middle look much more cool. Learning this helped me a lot with understanding why certain colors interacted the way that they did. In this artwork that I made, if you look at the colors together, they look orange and blue, but if you separate them and look at them individually in another canvas, you can see that the colors are actually a gray and a blue. In most programs, there are three main things that we have to look at: hue, saturation, and lightness. Hue is an obvious one, dictating the color that we choose with our color wheel. Saturation, on the other hand, changes the intensity of the color that we choose on the color wheel, from gray all the way to a highly saturated color. Lightness will change the tint or shade of our colors, ranging from black or all the way to white. You may notice that my color wheel is slightly different than yours. That's because the default color wheel in most programs is the square one. These are essentially the same thing, but I've always preferred the triangle color wheel more, as it easily showed what each of the corners was changing. If I move my cursor right, it would increase the saturation. Moving it up will add more tint, while moving it down will add more shade. Something else that you should pay attention to when working with colors is that all colors have different values when viewed in grayscale. What I'm doing is not the same as just turning down the saturation of these colors. I am viewing these colors in grayscale and looking at their actual values. As you can see, blues will look the darkest, while yellows will be the brightest. This also happens to the other colors around it. If you keep this in mind when you start coloring, it'll help you a lot with choosing the right values for your art. Having good values can make your illustrations stand out more, and give you more control in guiding your viewers' eyes to where you want them to look. The last thing that you should learn about is the different types of color group that you can choose for your palette. For example, choosing colors next to each other on the color wheel will create an analogous color scheme. These colors will blend together well, and will work well together to create a balanced palette. Complementary colors look good together because of the contrast that they have with each other. Because they are opposite from each other from the color wheel, they stand out next to each other, which is what makes them look so good together. The next color group is triads. These are taken from three corners of the color wheel and work together to make another group of colors that work well together. Colors can also have meanings and give off different types of feelings. For example, red can indicate danger, while something like green can feel more safe. Colors can also be more warm or cool. Blue is more cool, while orange is warmer. You often see this with lights. For example, this illustration of Freeran that I drew looks a lot colder because of the blues, while this one looks a lot warmer because of the oranges. So how do you actually use this knowledge for your own art? I think in a very general sense, it'll help you with understanding why your colors will look a certain way. Like why some colors may look more washed out when you use them, or are a bit too dark. If you just color pick from an artist that you like, you might not understand why it looks so different from your own drawings. Context is very important to colors, and understanding that can help you a lot with understanding why some colors work well together, while others don't. Many professional artists already understand this concept and understand these things intuitively, and can choose the colors that they feel like. But for people that are newer to art, it can be a lot harder to do. Even changing the background color of your canvas can change the appearance of your art a lot. And it's also the reason why art can look different depending on if you use light or dark mode for your applications. In the case of this illustration, you can see that the colors look dramatically different depending on the color that I choose for the background. In the one with the white background, the image looks softer, and in the case of the black background, there is too much contrast between the colors, making it difficult to look at. Now that we know this, how do we actually get better at understanding colors? One of the exercises that I've been doing a lot is value studies. I get images from sites such as Unsplash, Pexels, or Pixelbyte, and organize them all in one canvas. From there, I try to train my eyes to see the values of each of the photographs, and organize the colors the best that I can, from lightest to darkest. You can manually pick the colors if you want to train your eyes to see colors, but to me, it didn't really matter because I wanted to train my eyes to see just the values. At first I wasn't very good at it, but over time, I gradually started to improve. I started to understand what values each of the colors were, and was able to differentiate them between each other. If you want to take this one step further, you can also try doing master studies, where you copy the image in its entirety. This will help you train your eyes, help you understand shapes better, and will also help other things as well, like your line control. So with everything that we know, and with the practice that we did, how do we use it to guide where we want people to look? Contrast is what we're going to use to guide our viewers' eyes. This can be contrast with hue, saturation, lightness, or a mix of them all together. Even if you know color theory, it won't help you unless you actually try to use it in your own artwork. For this illustration, I'll try to explain my own thought process. Although this video is just about color, lighting plays a big part in colors as well. To put it bluntly, if you have no light, you won't have any colors. For this illustration, I like using the contrast with the light and the shadows to give it a nice shape. Our eyes will naturally look for the brightest point in an image, which is what we can use to our advantage to guide where we want our viewers to look. Next is saturation. This one is pretty easy to do because I only want you to look at the character. This is why most of the saturation is there. Next is hue. In this image, I really only use it for small areas. For hue, I added blue and orange with an overlay layer to slightly add color to the image. I usually don't like to add a lot of saturation to my art, so just to overlay a layer with the opacity turned down is good enough for me. I add blue areas that I want to be dark and orange areas where I want it to be brighter. These colors are complementary and work well together. And because of their inherent values, they don't change the original values too much. Finally, I add a color layer and fill it with black and white to check the final value of the piece. If your values are off now, go ahead and add a tone curve layer on top. Try to adjust it to the values that you like. This is also where I would add a color balance layer to change the colors. If I wanted to look more orange, I would shift the colors to be more red and yellow. While if I wanted to look a bit darker, I would shift the colors to be blue, cyan, and magenta. Finally, you can add gradient maps on top of the entire thing. Sometimes I like adding it at the beginning of the process, and sometimes I like to add it at the end. Either way, I think it's a good way to spice up your art without doing too much work. Gradient maps are easy to apply and easy to remove. So if you don't like the colors after applying a gradient map, you can easily turn them off or remove them entirely. I think this covers most of the basics of color theory that I know. There's a lot more to color theory than just this, but I don't think I'm qualified enough to teach it. Even with all of this information, I don't think you would be able to pick the perfect colors to please everybody. Everybody has colors that they like more than others, which is why I think it's up to you to figure out what kind of colors you like on your own. See what colors the artists that you admire like to use. Try to understand what you like about them so that you can use it in your own work. But if you want to learn more, there's so much more information about it. Either way, I hope that you learned something new in this video and can use it for your own artworks. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you again in another video. Bye bye!